Welcome to AppleKnows channel. I am Apple, and today I will be your voice guiding you through a collection of records so unbelievable, you may think they are fiction at first. But every single one of them is real, documented, and officially recognized. This is not a tale of myths, but of human extremes and natural wonders that push the very limits of what we imagine possible. Let's start with a record that feels almost alien. The longest time a human has ever stayed awake without sleep is 11 days straight, achieved by Randy Gardner in 1964. He was just 17 years old, and during the experiment his mind began playing cruel tricks on him. He experienced hallucinations, memory lapses, and dramatic changes in mood. Doctors who monitored him were shocked at how his body endured such a dangerous stretch, and today, no one would be allowed to repeat this in a controlled experiment because of the risks. Yet this record still stands, untouched for over half a century. Now imagine stretching the limits of the body in a different way. Ashrita Furman, a man from New York, holds more Guinness World Records than anyone else in history. Over 700 records. He has balanced a chainsaw on his chin, completed underwater pogo stick jumping, and even covered 27 miles on stilts. What makes him remarkable is not just the variety of his feats, but the fact that he has been breaking records since 1979 and continues to do so even in his 60s. It is as though he built his life on proving that human creativity has no limit. But humans are not the only ones capable of unbelievable extremes. Let's talk about a creature smaller than a fingernail, the water bear, also known as the tardigrade. This tiny microscopic animal has survived in outer space, in boiling water, in freezing Antarctic conditions, and even under radiation that would kill any other life form. Scientists call it practically indestructible. Imagine something so tiny outliving situations that would obliterate us in seconds. It makes you question what survival really means. Speaking of survival, consider the oldest known tree in the world. A bristlecone pine named Methuselah is over 4,800 years old and still alive today in California. This tree has lived through empires rising and falling, through wars, through the birth of every modern religion. While we measure our lives in decades, this tree has silently observed millennia, outlasting generations of humans who never even knew it existed. And records are not always about longevity or endurance. Some are about size that bends belief. Take the largest snowflake ever recorded. In 1887 in Montana, a rancher described a snowflake that was 15 inches wide and 8 inches thick. That is larger than a dinner plate falling from the sky. While some scientists debate the measurement, the record still stands as the most gigantic snowflake ever observed. Just imagine holding your hand out and catching an entire frozen masterpiece larger than your face. Or picture this, the loudest sound ever recorded on Earth. It was not a concert or an explosion in war, but the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883. The sound was so loud it ruptured the eardrums of sailors 40 miles away and circled the globe multiple times. People as far as 3,000 miles could hear it, which means it was like hearing an explosion in New York while sitting in Los Angeles. No human-made machine has ever come close to such raw, terrifying force. Even our bodies can defy expectation. Did you know the strongest muscle, pound for pound, is the masseter, the jaw muscle? With it, a human can exert over 200 pounds of pressure, enough to bite through a pencil in half. And yet, while our jaws are powerful, they are nothing compared to the bite of a crocodile, which can clamp down with 3,700 pounds of force, a grip so powerful it could crush metal. Records reveal how fragile and how powerful we are at the same time. They show us that life, both human and beyond, constantly rewrites the limits we think exist. And the deeper we dig, the stranger and more shocking the facts become. Think of the longest time a human has held their breath underwater. In 2016, Alix Segura from Spain managed to stay submerged without breathing for 24 minutes and 3 seconds. To put that into perspective, that is the length of an entire television episode. Most of us struggle to last a single minute, yet he pushed his body to survive nearly half an hour without oxygen. It is a record that feels almost like something a superhero would attempt. Now let's shift to something so bizarre it almost sounds like a joke. The world record for the fastest marathon ever completed, while dressed as a vegetable. Yes, it exists. A man named Michael Tozer ran the London Marathon in just under 3 hours and 45 minutes while wearing a giant carrot costume. People attempt these quirky records not just for fun but also to raise awareness or funds for charities. Yet the discipline behind running such distances in restrictive outfits is incredible, turning silliness into endurance art. But not all records are humorous. Some are chilling. Consider the record for the highest temperature ever recorded on Earth. In Death Valley, California, in 1913, the thermometer hit 134 degrees Fahrenheit, or 56.7 degrees Celsius. At that heat, the ground can burn skin, shoes melt, and survival becomes almost impossible without shelter. It remains the deadliest reminder of how hostile our own planet can be, even without volcanoes or hurricanes. Speaking of extremes, let's talk about the deepest any human has dived without breathing apparatus. Herbert Nitsch, known as the deepest man on Earth, descended 214 meters below the ocean's surface in 2007. That is deeper than a 70-story building underwater, with nothing but a single breath. At that depth, pressure is crushing, darkness absolute, and yet he managed to return alive. Though the attempt nearly cost him his life later, his record remains untouched, a haunting example of the risks humans take to break boundaries. But not all records belong to humans. The blue whale, the largest animal ever known to exist on Earth, can grow over 100 feet long and weigh as much as 200 tons. Its tongue alone can weigh more than an elephant, and its heart is the size of a small car. When it exhales through its blowhole, the spout can reach almost 30 feet into the air. Even dinosaurs never reached such mass. To think, we share the planet right now with a living giant of this magnitude feels almost unreal. And sometimes, records hide in the smallest corners. The fastest growing plant on record is a species of bamboo. Certain types can grow nearly 35 inches in a single day. That means if you stood in a bamboo forest and came back the next morning, the stalks could be nearly a meter taller than they were before. Nature itself can outpace anything humans engineer when it comes to sheer speed of growth. Then there are records that seem almost uncomfortable to even imagine. The longest fingernails ever grown reached a combined length of over 29 feet. The man who grew them, Sridhar Chillal from India, spent more than 60 years without cutting them on his left hand. They curled, twisted, and thickened into shapes that made daily life nearly impossible. When they were finally cut, they were preserved in a museum. A reminder that sometimes records are less about achievement and more about obsession. And obsession is also what drives the record for the most tattoos on a human body. Lucky Diamond Rich from New Zealand has spent more than 1,000 hours being tattooed, covering every single inch of his skin, including eyelids, gums, and even the insides of his ears. He did not stop there, he layered tattoos over tattoos, creating an entire living canvas of ink. For him, the record was not about one session but a lifetime of dedication to becoming art itself. The world of records is endless, and the deeper we go, the stranger and more shocking the truths become. Some make us laugh, some disturb us, and some leave us in awe of what humans and nature can do. And yet, we have only scratched the surface. Picture this, the fastest land animal is the cheetah, reaching speeds up to 75 miles per hour in short bursts. But did you know the fastest bird, the peregrine falcon, dives at over 240 miles per hour? That is faster than a Formula One car on the track. In fact, when the falcon strikes its prey, the impact is so powerful that it can kill instantly. It's nature's perfect design for speed, leaving even our best machines struggling to compare. Now think about something that feels impossible for the human body. The heaviest weight ever lifted by a human is staggering. Paul Anderson, a strongman from the United States, lifted 6,270 pounds in 1957 during a backlift. That's about the weight of an elephant. To this day, it stands as one of the greatest feats of raw human strength, something so extreme that scientists still debate how a human skeleton could even endure such pressure without shattering. Records can also stretch into pure endurance. The longest anyone has ever run without stopping is astonishing. Dean Karnazes, an ultramarathon runner, ran for 350 miles straight in 2005 without sleep, food beyond quick bites, or rest. He went for more than 80 hours non-stop. Most of us cannot even imagine running for an hour without collapsing, yet he ran across hundreds of miles like it was one continuous breath. But let's leave Earth for a moment. The hottest planet in our solar system is not Mercury, the closest to the Sun, but Venus. Its surface temperature reaches nearly 900 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt lead. Add to that an atmosphere of crushing carbon dioxide and clouds of sulfuric acid, and you have a place where survival is beyond science fiction. What shocks scientists even more is that some believe Venus might have once had oceans before turning into a hellworld. Back on Earth, let's face one of the most terrifying records of nature, the deadliest animal to humans. Most would guess sharks, lions, or snakes. But the truth is far smaller. The mosquito is responsible for more deaths than any other creature, spreading diseases such as malaria, dengue, and Zika. Every year, these tiny insects kill hundreds of thousands of people. They are proof that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are not the largest predators but the smallest, buzzing in the night. Now, from deadly to dazzling. The largest diamond ever found on Earth is the Cullinan diamond, discovered in South Africa in 1905. It weighed over 3,100 carats before being cut. Pieces of it now sit inside the British crown jewels, but imagine holding in your hand a crystal that big, sparkling with millions of years of Earth's history. It's not just a record of size, but a reminder of how nature hides treasures more magnificent than anything man can craft. And then there's sound. The quietest place on Earth is an anechoic chamber in Minnesota, so silent that no outside noise enters. People who enter report hearing their heartbeat, the sound of their blood flowing, even the movement of their bones. Some cannot last more than 30 minutes inside because the absence of sound becomes unbearable, almost maddening. Silence, when taken to the extreme, becomes more disturbing than noise. But extremes are everywhere, even in lifespan. The longest living creature ever discovered is a species of clam called the ocean quahog. One specimen, nicknamed Ming, was discovered to be 507 years old. Think about it, this clam was alive during the Renaissance, before the discovery of America by Europeans, before Shakespeare wrote a single word. It sat in the ocean, alive and silent, through centuries of human history. Every record we uncover stretches our sense of reality further, showing us not just what humans can do, but what nature and the universe itself create. And the most shocking part? There are still records hidden, waiting to be discovered. Imagine the largest living organism on Earth. You might think of the blue whale, but the true record holder is a fungus in Oregon, known as Armillaria ostoyi. It covers over 2,300 acres underground and is estimated to be thousands of years old. From above, you would only see mushrooms, but beneath the soil lies a single interconnected organism so massive it has been called the humongous fungus. It is a living giant hidden in plain sight, quietly breaking the record for the biggest creature we know. Now think of time itself. The longest prison sentence ever handed down in history was given to Chamui Thipieso in Thailand. She was sentenced to 141,078 years in 1989 for running a massive pyramid scheme. Of course, she did not serve that, but the number alone shows how justice sometimes creates records as shocking as any physical feat. And speaking of numbers, the highest IQ ever recorded belongs to Marilyn Boss Savant, who scored an estimated 228. She was listed in the Guinness Book of World Records and became famous for her extraordinary intelligence, writing columns where readers challenged her with riddles, logic puzzles, and philosophical questions. Her brainpower set a bar so high it remains legendary. But while some records highlight the brilliance of individuals, others show the extremes of survival. In 1971, a 17-year-old girl named Julianne Coep was the sole survivor of a plane crash over the Amazon rainforest. She fell more than 10,000 feet strapped to her seat, survived the impact, and then endured 11 days alone in the jungle with nothing but basic knowledge of plants her father had taught her. Her survival is one of the most shocking and inspiring true records in history. If survival isn't shocking enough, let's talk about something that bends the mind, the fastest thing humans have ever built. That record belongs to the Parker Solar Probe, a NASA spacecraft launched in 2018, which is traveling around the Sun at speeds of about 430,000 miles per hour. At that speed, you could travel from New York to Tokyo in less than a minute. It is the fastest man-made object ever created, and it is still breaking its own record as it loops closer and closer to the Sun. Records can also turn deadly beautiful. The highest waterfall in the world, Angel Falls in Venezuela, drops over 3,200 feet. That's more than 15 times the height of Niagara Falls. Water plunges from such an immense height that by the time it reaches the ground, much of it has turned into mist. Standing before it, humans appear smaller than ants against the sheer wall of falling water. And then, of course, there are records written not by nature or machines, but by sheer human obsession. Take the largest collection of rubber ducks. Yes, someone holds that record. Charlotte Lee from the United States owns more than 9,000 different rubber ducks. What began as a quirky hobby turned into a collection so massive it earned a Guinness World Record, proving that even the simplest toys can lead to extraordinary milestones. Yet obsession can be more dangerous. Consider the record for the most Big Macs eaten by one person. Donald Gorsk, also from the United States, has eaten over 34,000 Big Macs in his lifetime, averaging about 2 a day for decades. Doctors were baffled that he remained relatively healthy, as though his body had adapted to a single repetitive diet. It's a record that makes you question how far habit can bend biology. And finally, let's step into the vastness of the universe itself. The largest star ever discovered, Uy-Scuti, is so enormous that if it replaced our Sun, it would engulf Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and even Jupiter. To put it in perspective, 1,700 times larger in diameter than our Sun. Stars like this remind us that the scale of the universe dwarfs even the wildest records on Earth. And still, these records are just a glimpse. The stranger the record, the more it proves one truth: reality is often far more shocking than imagination. Let's start with a record written not in strength or speed, but in patience. The longest chess game ever officially played lasted for 269 moves and stretched over 20 hours before it ended in a draw. Imagine sitting for nearly a full day, calculating every move, your mind and body drained, only to walk away with no winner. It's proof that endurance can exist not just in the body, but in the mind. From the battlefield of the mind to the battlefield of nature, the most destructive earthquake ever recorded struck Chile in 1960. It reached a magnitude of 9.5, the strongest earthquake in history. The sheer force shifted entire coastlines, generated tsunamis that reached as far as Japan, and killed tens of thousands. Scientists discovered that the quake was so powerful it literally altered the Earth's rotation slightly, shortening the length of a day. That's how extreme natural records can become. And if that seems too massive to grasp, consider the opposite. The smallest vertebrate ever discovered is a tiny frog from Papua New Guinea, just 7.7 millimeters long. It's so small it could sit on the tip of a pencil. And yet, inside this miniature body lies a complete skeleton, lungs, and beating heart, the entire blueprint of life compressed into something smaller than a fingernail. But sometimes records are not about size or destruction, but about endurance against the impossible. In 1972, Vesna Vulovic, a Serbian flight attendant, survived a fall from 33,000 feet when her plane exploded in midair. She holds the record for surviving the highest fall without a parachute. She was found in the wreckage, badly injured but alive, a miracle of survival that scientists still struggle to explain fully. And what about endurance under the most bizarre conditions? The longest anyone has voluntarily lived underground without sunlight is 500 days. In 1964, a man named Michel Sifry conducted an experiment, isolating himself in a cave. He lost track of time, his sleep cycles collapsed, and his body's sense of day and night completely vanished. When he emerged, he thought far fewer days had passed. His record not only shocked the scientific world but revealed just how fragile our connection to time truly is. If survival is astonishing, so is sheer speed. The fastest train in operation, the maglev in Japan, has reached speeds of 375 miles per hour. That's faster than a jet taking off, yet passengers inside sit comfortably, sipping tea while the landscape blurs into streaks of light outside. It's a record that feels like stepping into science fiction, yet it's already real. Now consider one of the strangest human feats of obsession, the most pierced person in the world. Elaine Davidson, originally from Brazil, has over 11,000 piercings on her body, including hundreds on her face and tongue. What started as body art became a lifelong pursuit, turning her into a living record of endurance and decoration. An obsession takes another form in collecting. The largest collection of Pokemon memorabilia belongs to a woman named Lisa Courtney from the UK, who owns over 20,000 items. Entire rooms of her house are filled with toys, games, and rare collectibles. A simple love for a childhood series grew into a global record, proving that passion, no matter how playful, can push people into extraordinary territory. But let's zoom out again to the universe. The coldest place ever recorded in the cosmos is the Boomerang Nebula, where temperatures drop to just 1 degree above absolute zero, colder than anything naturally possible on Earth. If you were there, molecules themselves would barely move. It's the kind of record that reminds us how unforgiving space truly is. Every record tells a story of pushing past boundaries, whether by nature, by human drive, or by the vast, terrifying canvas of the universe itself. And the more we uncover, the more it feels like we've only just begun scratching at the surface of what's possible. Let's begin with human memory. The longest speech ever delivered lasted 124 hours straight. A man named Ananta Ram from Nepal spoke continuously for more than 5 days, covering countless topics. Imagine talking for so long that days blur together, your throat burns, your body trembles, but your determination keeps forcing words out. It's not just a record of speech, it's a record of mental endurance against exhaustion. Now imagine traveling to the depths instead of climbing to heights. The Mariana Trench holds the record for the deepest part of Earth's oceans, plunging about 36,000 feet below sea level. To put that in perspective, if Mount Everest were placed at the bottom of this trench, its peak would still be over a mile underwater. The pressure there is so crushing it's equivalent to having dozens of jumbo jets stacked on top of your body. And yet, scientists have found life forms surviving in this crushing abyss, proving that life adapts in ways we cannot fully understand. From the darkest depths to the blazing skies, consider the record for the longest lightning bolt ever measured. In 2020, a single bolt stretched across 477 miles of sky, from one end of a storm system to another. That's roughly the distance between London and Paris and back again. Imagine looking up at the night sky and seeing a streak of electricity covering an entire horizon. Nature sometimes creates displays so large that the human eye struggles to comprehend them. But records are not always natural, they can also be terrifying feats of survival. In 2013, a man named Harrison Okene survived for 3 days trapped underwater after his tugboat capsized off the coast of Nigeria. He was in an air pocket, surrounded by darkness, cold, and silence, while sharks circled outside the wreckage. When rescuers finally found him, he was so disoriented he thought he was dreaming. It remains one of the longest underwater survival stories ever recorded. Now let's shift from terror to speed. The fastest animal relative to its body size is not the cheetah or falcon, it's the mite Paratarsotomus macropalpes. This tiny insect can sprint 322 times its body length per second. If a human had that same ability, we could run at over 1,300 miles per hour, faster than the speed of sound. It's a record that proves power and speed don't always belong to giants. And when it comes to giants, nature has its own shocking display. The largest living creature ever caught on camera in the deep sea was a giant squid over 43 feet long. For centuries, sailors told tales of sea monsters pulling ships under, and science dismissed them as myths. Yet in modern times, cameras confirmed their existence. The giant squid is real, enormous, and terrifying, lurking in the depths of oceans humans barely understand. But if you think the sea is mysterious, look to the skies again. The longest flight ever taken by a bird is held by the bar-tailed godwit. One individual was tracked flying from Alaska to New Zealand over 7,500 miles, without stopping once. No food, no rest, just pure endurance across oceans. For humans, that would be like running hundreds of marathons in a row without ever pausing, and yet this small bird does it as part of its migration every year. Human obsession, though, creates its own extremes. The record for the longest time spent in direct body contact with ice is 2 hours, 35 minutes, and 33 seconds, set by a man named Joseph Koberl from Austria. He stood immersed in a transparent box filled with ice cubes, while crowds watched him fight off hypothermia through nothing but mental control and sheer willpower. He later described the pain as needles stabbing every inch of his body, but he endured, and he set the record. And then there's a record that blends endurance with danger. The longest swim ever recorded in open water without flippers or a wetsuit was more than 139 miles, achieved by Veljko Rogasic in the Adriatic Sea. He swam for over 50 hours non-stop. The ocean was unpredictable, the waves relentless, and yet he refused to quit. That record still stands as one of the most dangerous challenges ever completed. What these records show is simple: whether it's nature, animals, or humans, the limits we think exist are constantly being shattered. And as soon as one record is broken, another waits just beyond, daring someone to go further. I'm still Apple from AppleKnows channel, and what comes next will stretch your sense of what's humanly and naturally possible. Take, for instance, the record for the longest hiccup attack in history. A man named Charles Osborne from the United States hiccuped continuously for 68 years. It started in 1922 and did not stop until 1990. Doctors estimated he hiccuped around 430 million times during his life. The fact that he managed to live with it, work, and even raise a family is almost beyond comprehension. Now from an involuntary record to one of deliberate obsession, the longest time spent without food. In 1965, Angus Barbieri from Scotland began a supervised fast to lose weight. He went without eating solid food for 382 days, surviving on vitamins, tea, coffee, and water. He lost over 270 pounds and holds the record for the longest hunger strike without fatal consequences. Doctors monitored him constantly, and yet his survival remains one of the strangest medical records in existence. But nature has records that make even these feats look small. The most poisonous animal on Earth is the golden poison dart frog, found in Colombia. Just one frog carries enough toxin in its skin to kill up to 10 humans. Indigenous people once used its venom to tip their blow darts for hunting. It's a reminder that danger sometimes comes in the most colorful and fragile-looking packages. And while danger fascinates us, so does endurance on the scale of time. The oldest known living creature was discovered in Greenland, a shark estimated to be nearly 400 years old. These Greenland sharks grow slowly, moving through icy waters, and some were alive before the United States even existed as a nation. Swimming silently in the dark, they embody patience as a form of survival. From patience to raw force, the largest volcanic eruption in recorded history was the eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815. It released so much ash and gas into the atmosphere that it caused the year without a summer in 1816. Crops failed across Europe and North America, leading to famine, while snow fell in June in New England. That eruption killed more than 70,000 people and altered the global climate for an entire year. It was a record of destruction on a planetary scale. But destruction doesn't always come from nature, sometimes it comes from human will. The largest pyramid in the world is not in Egypt but in Mexico, the Great Pyramid of Cholula. It's so massive that it looks like a hill covered with vegetation, with a church built on top. Its base is 4 times larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Millions of people have passed by without realizing they were looking at the largest pyramid ever built. And if you think the Earth hides secrets, the universe hides even stranger ones. The heaviest black hole ever discovered is estimated to weigh 66 billion times more than our Sun. To grasp that, think of our Sun, so massive it controls every orbit in our solar system, and then multiply it tens of billions of times. A monster in the cosmos, swallowing light, time, and space itself. Yet sometimes the records that shock us most are not cosmic but personal. The oldest person ever verified was Jeanne Calment from France, who lived to the age of 122 years and 164 days. She was alive when the Eiffel Tower was built, lived through both world wars, and even met Vincent van Gogh as a young girl. Her lifespan stretched across 3 different centuries, an almost mythical existence measured not in years, but in epochs. And obsession takes another strange shape in the world's longest wedding veil. In 2018, in Cyprus, a bride wore a veil that measured more than 23,000 feet long, longer than 60 football fields. It was less about fashion and more about making history, turning a personal ceremony into a global record. Every one of these records, from the cosmic to the personal, whispers the same truth: reality's boundaries are far wider than we imagine. And the deeper we dig, the stranger the world becomes. Consider the human voice. The loudest burp ever recorded measured 112.7 decibels, set by Paul Hun from the UK. To compare, that's about as loud as a rock concert or a chainsaw. Imagine producing that sound with nothing but your body. It's the kind of record that is both hilarious and baffling at the same time. Now shift to something far more serious. The longest surgery ever performed lasted 103 hours. In 2001, a team of doctors in Singapore worked non-stop to separate conjoined twins. That's more than 4 days without stopping, surgeons trading shifts while maintaining concentration and precision. It wasn't just a medical operation, it was a battle of endurance, focus, and teamwork on the edge of human ability. And speaking of endurance, one man holds the record for the longest time spent living in space. Russian cosmonaut Valery Polyakov stayed aboard the Mir space station for 437 days straight, more than 14 months without setting foot on Earth. He orbited the planet thousands of times, watched hundreds of sunrises and sunsets, and experienced the disorienting reality of living where gravity does not exist. It remains a record of not just science, but of the human mind's ability to survive isolation and distance. But isolation takes stranger forms here on Earth. The hottest pepper in the world is the Carolina Reaper, officially measuring over 2.2 million Scoville heat units. Eating just one can cause dizziness, nausea, and even hospitalization. Yet competitive eaters push their bodies to consume them by the handful, chasing a record that seems more like punishment than achievement. Nature, however, always outpaces us. The largest wave ever surfed reached a height of 101.4 feet, ridden by Garrett McNamara off the coast of Nazaré, Portugal. The sight of a human balancing on a board while a wall of water as tall as a 10-story building towers above him is almost impossible to believe. In the ocean, power and beauty merge into a record that defies reason. And let's not forget about light itself. The fastest spinning object ever created by humans is a microscopic sphere of silica, levitated by lasers, spinning at 600 million revolutions per minute. That's so fast it breaks our normal understanding of rotation. Scientists use such records not for glory, but to test the very boundaries of physics. From the cutting edge of science back to the extremes of the body, the longest mustache ever grown measured over 14 feet long, belonging to Ram Singh Chauhan from India. To maintain it, he spends hours grooming every single day. For him, the mustache is not just hair, it's a lifelong dedication to holding a place in history. And sometimes, history is written in ice. The coldest temperature ever recorded on Earth was -144 degrees Fahrenheit, measured in Antarctica. At that cold, air is so dry and sharp that human lungs could be damaged simply by breathing. It is a record that reminds us our planet can be as hostile as the deadliest alien world. Even stranger are the records that combine danger with endurance. The longest anyone has spent in freefall before opening a parachute was achieved by Felix Baumgartner in 2012, when he jumped from 128,000 feet above Earth, breaking the sound barrier with his body. He plummeted for nearly 5 minutes, reaching speeds over 800 miles per hour, before his parachute opened. Millions watched live, holding their breath as he pushed human survival into uncharted territory. And yet, perhaps the most thought-provoking record of all is silence, because silence itself can be unbearable. In 2018, a French spelunker named Michel Poulain spent 45 days alone in a cave, without clocks, sunlight, or sound. When he emerged, he believed only a few weeks had passed. His record showed how fragile our grip on time is, and how easily isolation can warp our very perception of reality. These records are reminders that extremes exist everywhere, within our bodies, within nature, within the vastness of the cosmos, and even within the fragile human mind. And each one leaves us with the same thought: if this is possible, then what else is out there, waiting to be discovered? And so, we close this journey. I'm Apple from AppleKnows channel, and what we've uncovered together is proof that the world we live in is far stranger, more extreme, and more awe-inspiring than we often realize. From the depths of the oceans to the edge of space, from human obsession to nature's raw power, every record tells us one thing: limits exist only until someone, or something, breaks them. The most shocking truth is this: reality itself is the ultimate storyteller, and no fiction could ever compete with the extremes that already exist all around us. Thank you for staying with me through this exploration of records that test the boundaries of possibility. Until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and never forget, what seems impossible may just be tomorrow's record.